We might be on introduction part 37. We don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
No, we can't do that. Bisexual lighting.
You're listening and you have thoughts and you want to share them with us. And we love that.
Oh, sure. Put me on the spot. Why don't you?
Susie sells seashells by the seashore.
No, she doesn't.
Because it's going to be great. And I think you're going to enjoy the heck out of it. Welcome back. It is the Write Out Loud podcast. And I'm here with the amazing, ever-inspiring, outstanding, superb Christina.
Wow, what an introduction. I hope you don't expect the same from me. No, the wonderful, the wildly entertaining Matt.
Oh, I thank you. Thank you. Yes. Well, we are here today to spend a little time kind of getting to know you and understanding a little bit about your journey and what you do on a daily basis to help writers become better and better every single day.
Yes.
So that's what we're going to do. What do you think about that?
Sure. I whatever. Yeah.
Say I'm down for it. Just let's go. Let's just get this show on the road.
You know, the thing is that I don't even really think about what it is that I do until people start I don't want to say reminding me, but have me start talking about how I got into this business.
Sure.
What I've been able to do. And yeah, if I look at those moments, I go, yeah, that is pretty cool. I guess people are interested in that.
Yeah.
I really just started out as a reader and a fan, growing up, and it just grew into working at the bookstore, then moving up the ladder at the bookstore and ending up at the Borders home office. Each move was not in any way calculated. It was all just oh, that job is open. Oh, okay. The only calculated move I made was when they started closing Walden bookstores.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people at the home office that I knew were like, you got to get to a Borders before they close your store. That's the only calculated move I made to a Border store in Madison. And of course, loved working there. I would have been so happy working there, except
Thanks. I closed.
Yeah, no. Actually, I don't think that one closed for a few years after I left there. This job at the home office came open, and it was perfect for me, which was a marketing specialist doing all of the marketing for all of the stores for the genre fictions, the fun fictions, like I like to call them. I had absolutely zero qualifications except for I sold the hell out of books.
Nice.
And specifically the genre fiction ones. And I had created God, I can't believe I'm telling this story. I don't even know if you know about this, but when I was at my local teeny tiny Walden Books, I had this idea that if you could connect all of the genre readers, so my heavily read category was romance. And I actually started talking to some other romance readers that were also booksellers in my district.
Mm-hmm.
I got this idea to do this business plan. I combed through our store's sales from when I started there to what I had built them up to. And just because I loved reading, and when romance readers would come in the store, I'd share I'm reading, and then I'd figure out what they liked and I'd suggest stuff to them.
Sure.
And it really grew the section to where per capita, our store was pretty small because we're a small market. We're not big city, but my sales were bigger than Minneapolis area sales. My sales were competitive with these huge stores. I did the whole thing, mathematics, graphs, everything. And I simply said, we should just connect the booksellers so that we can really share what's selling, what we've read that's unique, what we've, and it actually, unbeknownst to me, few weeks after I sent it to my district manager, I got a phone call from a woman in Texas.
Gosh.
Yeah, it was very strange. And she had this thick Texas accent that I'm so not going to try to do because it would come out horrible. But she basically said, "You're Tina Trevaskis, and I'm told I need to speak with you." I'm like, "Okay, hi." And she said, "Your business proposal made it all the way to the home office, and the romance buyer contacted me because she ended up being like the top romance seller store.
Mm-hmm.
So her store is the top one in the company at that time." And so she and I started talking, and then all of a sudden we're getting memos from the home office saying that there's a romance expert program and that each store had, if they had somebody who read romance, that's what that person was going to be talking to the romance buyer, giving feedback. We would actually get, our names were with all of the major publishers. So every month I would get every single title from, at this time, there were the big seven. But Random House, Penguin, at the time it was called Warner. Now it's called Hachette, Simon and Schuster. I'm blanking on who else. But anyway, I'd get all of those books early to read, give feedback to the romance buyer, and to sell, to know what's coming up and what's selling and stuff like that. So because I had been instrumental in that kind of stuff, when the job came open at the home office with the genre, because I had done all of that, the marketing director was just like, yeah, I want you. I want this energy. I want that marketing to go out to the stores and stuff. So I stumbled into, I completely, everything that I do, I stumble into. None of this was ever planned. So let that be a lesson to everyone out there. You don't even have to dream it for it to happen.
Yeah.
You can just keep going forward and enjoying life. And just as long as you're creative and innovative, people are going to notice you.
Sure.
So that's exactly what happened. And then when I was, before I went to the home office, I had actually worked for an author at that point because I really thought that was the direction I was going to go. But wasn't anything to do with me, wasn't anything to do with the author, anything. I think we just both realized that we were not what each other needed. She really did need somebody to comb through her email, not do her marketing. So I had that experience. And then once Borders closed, or I got laid off because I was the last in, I was the first out. And so I did get laid off in the first round of layoffs for Borders, but immediately I got phone calls. I got phone calls from everywhere. And looking back, I probably should have kind of contemplated some of those other phone calls, but an author called me and she was like, "I want you to come down and be my business manager." Because she not just had best-selling books, but she had products and she had big fandom, and she had, before it was even popular to have a con with just single authors. So, I had so much experience that when I finally went to strike out on my own, and this is after Borders closed, that it was just natural. I had authors asking me, "Will you edit my book?" I'm like, "Okay, well, I do have a degree in English and I am good at grammar, so I think I can do that." But what I ended up being really, really good at was story, was story development, story flow, just all of the things that people don't think about goes into writing. I was actually really, really good at developing that in writers. So, yeah.
Nice. When you think about the different people that you work with in, your day to day, right? How do you approach understanding kind of the unique needs and goals that every writer has that you work with?
God, that's such a hard question because I don't actually know the answer, in the sense where I know what the manuscript needs. And so therefore it becomes what the writer needs. So I can go from reading a first draft and going, "Oh, this is great. but there's some stuff that needs to happen here. There's some development that needs to happen here. One thing we'll talk about ad nauseum on our podcast is a concept called show versus tell. And one of the first timers that I worked with right away was everything was like tell. And it was, she had this great idea, but she was like, everything was tell. There was no show whatsoever. And it is such a hard concept to understand until you get it. And once you get it, you're like, woo, this is great. So we worked on it quite a bit and giving examples, and we did the research together. I found some actually shows because it was easier to do show, movies, series, something that visual that you can see.
Sure.
Versus, have you read this book? You know, that's why I do use a lot of examples from the screen because it's so, you know, well known. When she handed me back the first couple of pages rewritten as show, it was the creepiest stuff I have ever read. And it was so good. It was magical. It was magical. So it's really more or less finding maybe what their weaknesses are, developing those to become more strengths, taking their strengths and going, okay. And it's interesting because today I did an edit and there was this moment of pure gold. And it was like, everything around it is fool's gold. We need to dig more for this gold. This is gold. This is pure talent, raw, wonderful. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest misconception for writers is that they've got to be so perfect and even passing it over to your editor perfect. No, I have to reteach them. I want the messy. I want the raw. I want the emotion because that's where I can find where you connect with your audience. And that's what you need to develop is that emotion that is connecting you to the audience. And that's across the board. That's fiction, nonfiction, every type of writing.
Sure.
You're not going to get your idea, your concept, your story read unless you engage. How do you engage? You connect, you emote, you find the commonalities, whether that's characters or your story.
So, I mean, you talk about that as a strategy for the way that you do your work, but what other strategies do you employ that, you know, really help that writer figure out not only their craft, but really their unique voice?
I absolutely point out. So again, when I was talking about in today's edit was that pure gold, I explained to them why it was pure gold, why it was impactful, why that was their strength rather than their weakness. And the interesting thing was he really thought I was going to say the opposite. Like the second half was so well written and so well done. No, that was the fool's gold. It was that first half that was so the voice is his. Okay. So here's the difference with voice. Your voice is your voice because you've written it. And when you reach those moments of pure gold, as he did, that's his voice. The other stuff, the fool's gold, that's not his voice. That's not him. That's his perception of what he thinks the audience is looking for.
Sure.
So when
like trying to be perfect and trying to get it just right. Yeah.
Yes. You're actually going, okay, this is what the audience's expectations are, and I must reach that. When it's actually the opposite, where if you just go in there and be you and tell your story, use your voice, your unique way, your audience is going to find you. If you do not write you, your audience can't find you. It's going to be these people that are just like, it's.
And being you would have to be not always the perfect, not always the rule,
never the
rules
perfect.
Of grammar, the perfect spelling and all of that.
And that's just it. Back in the day when I was still at Borders, I used to speak at conferences, and I had this talk that I called storytelling versus writing. they are two separate things.
Hmm.
Writing is very grammar, and you can have a perfect written thing. But if there isn't anything for the audience to connect to, then there's no point. And you can have something that is maybe not the best written piece of work that you've ever seen. But if the story is compelling and draws you in. So here's the thing. Stephanie Meyer, not your maybe top written person that you're going to put it that compare him to Hemingway or some Shakespeare, whatever. Yeah. But the thing is, she is laughing you all to the bank.
Yep.
Because she is a fantastic storyteller. She is one of the best storytellers out there. And I will tell you, not one person has ever done the blank page with just the month on it and keep going. I mean, at the end of those pages, I was like, oh my God. But I felt it.
Yeah.
I felt the change of those months that, Bella was numb. And there's nothing better than that. There's nothing better than breaking the rules, putting one word on a page because the reader is going to feel that. I mean, it's palpable.
They'll understand it. Absolutely.
And the thing is, that kind of storytelling is so much harder to teach because it is creatively each individual that says, I'm going to break those rules and I'm going to do it this way. Another writer, Kristen Ashley, let me tell you, if I were actually going to teach a class on how to be successful breaking every single writing rule there is, I mean, she has written books that are half in first person, half in third person. And not the same half. You're going back and forth.
Yeah.
But she makes it work because the female protagonist is written in first person. And the male protagonist is written in third person. And she somehow makes it work. She's also a damn good storyteller.
Yeah.
Damn good. I mean, she
knows how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. She does. And the thing is that New York said no, over and over and over to her because she had written in first person, and writing romance back then was no, we will not publish anybody in first person. But she continued to write and continued to pile up, I don't know how many manuscripts. And then this thing called ebooks came, and self-publishing became something beyond vanity publishing. And she took off. And man, she's got to be making bucks.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh man, I just out of sheer curiosity, she had so many books that she could publish and just keep publishing. And she's actually a very fast writer. So, she can pump out a book in a couple of months. Sure. Not everyone can do that. In fact, that's a rarity. Most of the clients I have will take anywhere from 6, 9, or 12 months to write one book. There are some first timers that are a couple of years in.
Yeah.
But that's also because you've got a secondary job and you've got other things in there.
I can't do this as my full time yet.
It is so much easier to write a book in a couple of months when that is your job.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So there is a difference there. So yeah, when you talk voice, again, you can always fix grammar. Always. That's actually the last thing I think you should work on. If you're focusing on the grammar on your first draft, then you better go write a different book because I'm not sure focusing on grammar on the first. And in fact, again, the edit that I did today, this was his very first book. And I think he was under the impression that we were going to get to the grammar because he's like, I want this to be so perfect, so perfect. Everybody wants their book to be perfect.
Oh,
but the thing is, you really do have to start with the overarching picture of beginning to end. How does this flow? Are you telling the story in the right order? And that's not necessarily A, B, C, D.
Right.
That could be all over the place, whatever makes sense for the story. But again, that's voice. Voice is all how you decide to tell the story.
Your methodology.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that seems like it's a major misconception, right? And I think to some degree that's driven by our experience going through school where everything had to be perfect when you present it because you're graded on, right? Like that's, and again, I'm not anti-school. I just think that that's kind of what we've bred into this society a little bit of people who haven't written before. Like that's all they know. They're like, well, in school, I had to get it just right and I had to hand it in and it better have been good because otherwise I was a failure,
Yeah.
But what do you think? I mean, aside from that as a misconception, what do you think are some other misconceptions or myths that are about the writing industry that you come across all the time?
I actually think there's a misconception on writer's block. Yes, it exists. Yes, you get to the computer and you go like, what are words? But the thing is, knowing that there's writer's block, the best thing that you can do is figure out why you have the writer's block. What is blocking you? Is it something in your personal life that isn't letting you get to the words? Is there something with the story that you are totally not getting? I had a fiction writer once at a talk that she actually said writer's block is you not doing what your characters want you to do with their story. And she said, inevitably, when I pushed through, I would have to go back to that point where I had the writer's block and write myself out of it again. Like, okay, I understand now. We got to go to the right, not the left. So she's firmly in that camp. I am in that camp of explaining writer's block as this. Have you ever been on a walk, in the shower, driving your car, doing the mundane, mowing the lawn, and you falling asleep at night? You're just about ready to go to bed and fall asleep and sleep. And all of a sudden, there's the most brilliant idea you've ever had. Like you're in the shower. I can't write it down. I'm on a walk. I can't write it down. That is because you have stepped away from it and are not thinking about it, whatever it is that you're trying to figure out or whatever story you're trying to tell. That's the moment that the creativity comes through because you are not strangling it to death.
Sure.
You are free flowing. You are free thought. You are relaxed. You're hopefully not stressed when you're in the shower, in the car, or
hopefully not
on the walk. So those are the moments actually that the creativity comes in. Actually, here is the biggest takeaway that I could give any writer, but most especially those doing it for the first time. The first draft just needs to be done because the magic happens in the second draft. And the reason for that is you've got so much stress and pressure to get that draft done, to figure out the story, to work, that it isn't until you get to that second draft that you can actually take a breath. And then once you've taken that breath, you actually go into that second draft with, oh my God, I know what to do. Oh my God, and I've got this idea. I can't tell you how many of my clients, and in fact, I would actually have to sit here and ponder with all of the writers that I've ever worked with in my entire career, where that second draft didn't have moments of magic that would not have been possible had they not written that first draft. So I think that's why a lot of writers say stuff like, first draft just has to be done. You just need to build the structure. Or that is you telling yourself the story. Because all it does is the ideas just need to get on paper. It does need to be more than just an outline. You do need to kind of figure out the story and work through it. But really, that second draft is magical.
Yeah.
I can't even count the number of times that working with authors and seeing that second draft and I'm reading it going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, this is so good. Oh my God. I never would have thought of that. Oh my God. Oh, we talked about this and this is the direction she decided to go. Wow.
And it's a third direction. It's something way different than we talked about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's actually how I see my role as that developmental editor. I am there to just help them generate the ideas. The ideas have to be theirs. We can discuss possible things that, okay, this isn't working, but what could you do instead? XYZ. But the thing is that I always allow them enough room to just fly with it, go with it, run with it, take off, because they're all creative. They're all very passionate about what they do. And when they get back to that manuscript and see what we've talked about, and they don't have the pressure of getting it done anymore, they're now writing in the shower. Metaphorically, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, they now no longer have those constraints of, I need to think. It's not squeezed off. So I think that's actually the biggest surprise to a lot of the clients that I work with, is how much more happens in that second draft. Everybody is under the understanding that the second draft is, oh, okay, you're just honing it more. You're tweaking things and polishing it. No. I actually believe that you do just as much work, but maybe even more work, but it's more creative work and more fun work than the first one. You're not bleeding. What is who said that? Get your hands on the keyboard and bleed. Well, there's some famous author, and I'm not getting the quote quite right, but you're no longer bleeding on your keyboard.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. But
now
yeah,
you get to have fun with it.
Yeah. And I think that's why I'm so nerdy about editing, is that I love digging into that first draft. First draft is always hard. I give myself more time to edit a first draft because I do tend to read in chunks here and there, and not just, I'd exhaust myself if I tried to read 4 hours a day for how many. No, I have to take a step back. But I think that's good because I contemplate too, is this the right thing? Okay, I've suggested this. Is this the right thing? Because sometimes I don't know. I don't know if I'm making the right suggestion. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing until I say it. And they say, wow, yeah, that helped.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thinking about the industry and thinking about the work that you do with the writers, like, how do you stay up to date with just the latest kind of trends, developments in the writing world? And how does that inform what you offer, right? Well, the way that you do your work.
I don't know if you're coming from a place of knowing on this or if you're putting me on the spot. I think you already know this about me. I am one of those people that say don't write to trend. I think it's a grand idea. And if you can get it out there quick enough, all the more power to you. But I actually think you should write what you are passionate about. There's an author that I work with. We're on our 6th book together, 7th book, somewhere in there. And the first series that she wrote was fantastic. It was great. She loved it. She hands me the first book of the next series that she's starting. And it is just so wow. When I'm reading it, I do think that probably is the only time that the second draft was real quick back to me, because there was hardly anything to fix on the first one. And we got to talking, and she said she actually started writing this book first, but she said she knew she wasn't capable of telling the story the way she wanted to tell it until she kind of learned how to write.
Sure.
But also, this was the book of her heart. This was the book she was really super passionate about. And that came through.
Okay.
And there are so many times early on, just to, as you say, kind of keep my pulse on the industry, I would do free 30-minute like Q&A individual. So anybody could come into my calendar in those times that I had set aside and just fill them up. It was free 30 minutes. You could ask me anything.
Sure.
The biggest things that I would get would be, I'm not selling. Why am I not selling? And then inevitably it would come down to, well, they're writing this genre because it's selling, but they really want to write in this genre because that's their passion.
Yep.
No. That's what I mean by don't write to trend. Don't write to something that like, hey, this is really selling. I can make a quick buck. Because actually in today's industry right now, ain't happening.
I feel like if you're jumping on that trend, the train's already gone. Like I think you're kind of too late to the game.
The thing, that's exactly it. Like by the time that you actually, oh, hey, this is a trend and I recognize it as a trend, unless you are that person that can write it in a couple of months. No. Now, I will say this, if that is your passion. Now, the author that I was just talking about, who this book is her book of the heart, it's actually a trend and it's a popular trend, but she does it so well. So it is, I really think it'll be interesting to see. It has not released yet. And she's working on book 2 in that series and already putting out ideas for book number 3. But I'm just really excited to see what happens differently with this one.
Nice.
And it won't be because her writing is very solid. It's been solid from the very beginning. And the story in the series that she started with was fantastic. Great idea. Very suspenseful. And I think she doesn't realize, even though she's writing romance, it's very good.
Nice.
Yeah. So I think that writing to trend, hey, if you're passionate about that trend, absolutely 100%. But maybe instead of being on trend, why don't you be the trendsetter? Like if you've got an idea for something. The funny thing is that I had a writer that was working on some modern day Westerns before Yellowstone existed. Before Yellowstone existed.
Okay.
So that's what you call a trend leader. Someone that is going to be right on that curve, right on that edge. Yeah. So there
you go.
I'm not the one that's going to tell you to write to trend just to sell. I am actually one of those that says, write something totally different. If that's what you're called to write. If you've got an idea for something that's, man, this is so out there. Like that's the kind of stuff I want to
do it. Just do it.
I want to see that. I want to see that. The funny thing is that a lot of industry complains that, oh, the readers say they want something different, but then when you put out something different, they don't want it. No. Okay. They want something different in one aspect, but they want to feel the same way. And that's why some authors get pigeonholed. I have this theory or this thing that I say, I call it the John Grisham effect. Because when I was still in the bookstore, John Grisham came out with his first legal thriller, took off. He wrote legal thriller after legal thriller after legal thriller. And then readers, customers would be like, that's all he writes is legal thrillers. They're all getting the same. I feel like I'm reading the same book. So then he comes out with A Painted House. And you'd think, oh, this is so different. This is what everybody's asking for, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so dry. Why can't he just go back to legal thrillers? And then what happens? He goes back to his first legal thriller and it is this mega, he's back. I think a couple things happened here. First of all, he did have this story idea of A Painted House. He really wanted to write it. He really was passionate about it. And he needed that. He needed that creative expression. And he should publish it because there are people out there. Please call us if this is your thing or email us or whatever. That loved A Painted House.
Yeah.
That loved me. I love me some Stephen King. That's not horror.
Yep.
Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, Green Mile.
Yep.
Different Seasons. Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption. Yes, that movie. That was the title of and The Body, which is AKA Stand By Me. Those were some of my favorite books because for me, he's magical when he writes that. But I know everybody else is his horror fan.
Yep.
But yeah, I do think that some writers need that palate cleanser before they get back to what they're really good at, what they're really passionate about.
Sure.
So I think there's a place for all books.
I love it.
As a reader, there's a place for every single book. There is a reader.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
There's a story for everybody.
There is.
This is the last question for you.
Okay.
What inspires you the most about working with writers and helping them to become better, to achieve their goals, to find their unique voice?
I mentioned it in passing earlier, but it is the magic of that second draft. When I get that second draft and I read it, there have been occasions where it has brought me to tears with the amount of growth from first draft to second draft. And that's really where I came up with that phrase, editing is where the magic happens. Because if you hadn't taken the time to edit it in a way that was not just adding more, editing is not about taking out. Editing for me is making it a more full story, is making it a living, breathing thing than we need to cut this. We need to
refining
cut
it.
It's
refining
it is
sculpting.
So that is why I keep doing what I do instead of going, I give up. I can't work with creatives anymore. They're driving me nuts. It's like herding cats. No, it is those moments that you see the author's growth from the first draft to second draft to even final draft. The other thing that keeps me working with these people is just the sheer joy of seeing them make their dreams come true.
Sure.
When they have that first reader that emails them, or just the discovery of this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And all of them, I don't have one client that does not work their ass off between that first draft and that second draft. I might be lucky that way, but that's what inspires me with this.
That's what inspires you. That's awesome. Well, very good. Thank you very, very much for sharing yourself with us and giving us
thank you
insights.
for the wonderful questions. Those were great questions.
You got it. If they want to find more about you, my darling, tell us. Where do we find you?
Bookmatchmaker.com.
Okay.
Christina at bookmatchmaker.com. I mostly hang out on Instagram, but I can be found on those other formats too. But Instagram is where I like to hang.
I love it. I love it.
Yes. And you, where can they find you?
Oh, Lord, I'm everywhere. Easiest way to find me is at cassem.omg.lol. I will take you to all of my things and find all of the various things.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are so uniquely. You can't have a .com. You can't have a... No, get me at LOL.
omg.lol.
I love you.
One of my favorite services. Oh, I love you too. All right, my darling. Well, thanks for listening in and join us next time. We'll be back. We'll talk more at length about Heartstopper and the stories that move us. Bye. Hey, thanks so much for listening to the podcast. We really hope that you're enjoying every bit of it, but we would love to hear your feedback. Drop us an email either to matt@writeoutloudpod.com or christina@bookmatchmaker.com. We would love to hear your thoughts. What's working, what's not working, and what do you want to hear more of? Thanks so much. We really appreciate it.